Have you ever listened to a politician's promise and just felt like something's not right? Like the real reason for a decision is being hidden from you? Well, today we're going to crack open a powerful toolkit for seeing the actual mechanics of power that operate just beneath the surface, a way to decode what's really going on. It's an incredibly frustrating question, isn't it? I mean, a candidate runs on a very specific platform, a new policy gets announced with all these lofty goals, and yet the results often look absolutely nothing like the promise. So why does this happen? It turns out there's a framework for getting to the bottom of this, and that's exactly what we're going to explore together. You know, the core of the problem really lies in this fundamental conflict. On one hand, you have politics as wish. This is the world of inspiring speeches, high-minded ideals, and what we're told a policy is for. But on the other side, you've got politics as reality. And that's the world of power, incentives, and the cold, hard question of who gains control. That huge gap between these two, that's where promises go to die. To bridge that gap, we're turning to a set of ideas brought together by the political theorist James Burnham. He drew on a group of thinkers he called the Machiavellians, and what they give us is a kind of political X-ray vision. Now, let's clear something up right away. When Burnham uses the word Machiavellian, he doesn't mean it as an insult, like someone is being cunning or evil. Not at all. Instead, he means a scientific, value-free approach to analysis. The goal isn't to judge whether a political move is good or bad, but to describe as accurately as possible how the machine of power actually works. Burnham didn't just invent these ideas out of thin air. He synthesized them from a group of brilliant, really hard-nosed thinkers. He built on Machiavelli, of course, but also people like Mosca, who taught us to always look for the small, ruling minority, and Pareto, who gave us a way to analyze elite psychology, and Michels, who showed how power always centralizes in big organizations. Together, they form this incredibly powerful foundation. And here's the surprising twist. The ultimate goal of this tough, realistic analysis isn't to become a cynic. According to Burnham, it's actually the opposite. By refusing to believe in political fairy tales, we can get serious about designing real, structural, and durable ways to actually defend freedom. All right, let's open up this toolkit. These are the core concepts that will help us see political reality with, I promise you, brand new eyes. First up is an idea from Gaetano Mosca. In any large organization, a government, a corporation, you name it, a small, organized minority is the one actually steering the ship. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's just a simple description of how coordination works. I mean, think about it. Most of us are busy with our own lives, while a very small group of people sits at the controls where information, money, and rules all come together. They're the ones who get to set the agenda. So how does this ruling minority get everyone else to go along with them? They use what Mosca called a political formula. This is the story, the slogan, the ideal that justifies their power. Think of phrases like, for your safety, or in the name of equity, or to protect national security. A good formula doesn't just get people to obey, it makes them feel like they agree. And this is where Vilfredo Pareto gives us a tool for digging deeper. He taught us to separate the derivations, the official high-minded reasons given for a policy, from the residues, the deep-seated motives and interests that are the real drivers. This lets us ask the crucial question, is this policy really about the stated ideal, or is it actually about fear, loyalty, or just gaining an advantage? Pareto also noticed a kind of rhythm in leadership. He saw a circulation of elites between two types. On one side, you have the foxes. They're the clever deal-makers and innovators who thrive when things are flexible. On the other, the lions. They're the guardians of order who get called in to tighten the bolts. So if you want to know where an organization is headed, just watch whether the foxes or the lions are the ones getting promoted. This brings us to Robert Michels' famous iron law of oligarchy. What he found was that as any organization gets bigger, power naturally centralizes in a small leadership group. Again, this isn't necessarily sinister. It's just a feature of scale. But the key takeaway is this. Accountability is never automatic. It has to be deliberately engineered right into the system. Okay, so we have our toolkit. We can spot the ruling minority. We can see the political formula. We can sniff out the hidden motives. Now, let's put it to the test with a fascinating real-world example to see just how powerful this framework can be. This right here is Burnham's single most powerful tool, the master key, really. Every political text, every law, every platform has two meanings. The formal meaning is the words on the page, what it claims it will do. But the real meaning is what the text actually does to the balance of power. Who gains durable control over the budget, the hiring, the enforcement, and who loses it? And this insight gives us a simple, practical workflow you can apply to almost anything. It's a 5-step process. First, just state the formal claims. Second, list the key groups involved. Third, trace the actual levers of power. Where's the money, the data, the agenda setting? Fourth, identify the political formula they're using. And then finally, you summarize the real meaning. Who does this shift control to? So let's apply this right now to the 1932 Democratic Party platform. Formally, on paper, it was stunningly fiscally conservative. It promised a balanced budget, a 25% spending cut, and sound currency. But what was the real meaning? Well, in practice, the New Deal led to the exact opposite. Massive deficits, centralized control over money, and an enormous expansion of the federal administrative state. And we're not talking about a small discrepancy here. That promise of a balanced federal budget can be put right next to the reality. In fiscal year 1934, the federal deficit was about $3.6 billion, which is over $86 billion in today's money. This one number just powerfully illustrates that massive gap between the formal promise and the real-world outcome, which was a huge expansion of federal power and spending. This all raises a critical question. If we can't trust the formal promises, where does real freedom actually come from? The toolkit gives us a clear, structural, and maybe even a surprising answer. For Burnham, the substance of freedom isn't found in beautiful declarations or the good intentions of whoever's in charge. No, it's found in something much more concrete. The practical, legally protected ability for an opposition to exist, to organize, to speak out, and to challenge those in power without fear of reprisal. And this freedom rests on 2 absolutely non-negotiable pillars. First, protected opposition rights. Can rival groups form and actually compete for power? Second, an adversarial press. Is there a media ecosystem that the rulers cannot easily control or just fuse into a single choir? If you have both, freedom has a fighting chance. If you don't, all those democratic rituals can become purely decorative. This isn't just theory. It's basically an engineering manual for liberty. If we know power centralizes, then we can design counterpower right into our institutions. Things like sunset clauses on new rules, truly independent audits, leadership term limits, minority reports. These are the nuts and bolts of a durable, free society, and they're far more important than any politician's promise. And that's the real power of this toolkit. It's not just for analyzing history. It's for seeing the world around you more clearly. So I'll leave you with this question. Look at your workplace, your community, or the news today. Where can you see that gap between the formal story and the real meaning? Because once you start looking, you'll see it everywhere.